Hi, welcome back to the Mental Wellness channel with Waihiga. If you are a returning subscriber, welcome back. If you are new to my channel, welcome. I hope that you stick around and take a listen to what I have to say. So I want to talk about the aftermath of a rape. The 72 hours has passed. Whether you decided to collect evidence or not, whether you decided to go to the police or not, the 72 hours has passed. That window of time is gone. Now you're left with the aftermath. The shock, the denial, the horror, the anger, the depression that this assault has happened to you. Speaking from someone who has been through an assault like this, I know how hard it is. And for me, the most difficult part of overcoming a sexual assault was the aftermath. Absolutely, the aftermath. And I'm not taking away from the act of the crime. That was absolutely violating and horrific in itself. The aftermath for me is also just as traumatizing because of the lack of support, the lack of societal support, the lack of resources, the lack of support from police, the lack of support from community, the lack of support from family, friends. You feel very alone. A crime has happened to you. You're a victim of a crime. You would think that people would be sympathetic, empathetic, and there for you. But because of the nature of the crime of a sexual assault, people want to distance themselves from you, or people don't want to talk about what happened. It's too uncomfortable for them. It's too painful for them. For some people, it brings up memories of what happened to them, and so people just don't want to touch it, which I think is really sad because it continues the cycle of trauma and pain and not being able to speak up and out against the crime that is rape. Extremely alarming how society works so hard to silence the victim and praise the perpetrator. And by praising the perpetrator, I mean that when I was going through the aftermath, I often felt that my perpetrator's life, livelihood meant way more than my life and what I was going through. His anonymity, his everything was protected when I, in fact, was going through the worst. You can't say the person's name. You can't name them. You can't do anything. You just can't. And yet this person has deeply, deeply violated you and has affected all areas of your life. This point in time, we were actually in very close proximity with each other. We were living in the same compound. And to see, to hear my perpetrator living life every single day as I struggled, as I suffered, was absolutely, I was speechless. There are no words for it. It's a mixture of anger and frustration and complete injustice and disrespect to the gravity of what he had done to me. So you have that on one side. And then on the other side, the people that you expected to lean on suddenly don't want to touch you within a 10-inch pole. Suddenly, the issue is just too sensitive, and suddenly people just don't want to be there for you. Suddenly, it's too traumatic to talk about these things. And people in your life look at you like, it's time to get over it. I know what he did was horrific, but it's time to move on. You can never set a deadline to any victim of sexual assault and tell them it is time to move on. Ever. Whether it's been years, months, days, weeks, seconds, you can never do that. We all react differently to trauma, and so you can never place a time limit. And I did have to cut off certain friendships. And I understand the issue is, it's hard. But if it's hard for you to listen to, imagine how hard it is for the survivor who's actually reliving those horrific scenes over and over daily. So I think a listening ear is really good. checking in on that person is really good. Just being there for that person is really good. Supporting them in whatever way they need is really good. Whether they need to vent, especially venting, is really good. It's not a time to talk. It's not a time to look down on that person. It's a time to validate. It's a time to confirm. It's a time to support. Because the victim feels so alone, especially if that perpetrator is not in jail. And as we know, these kinds of cases do not make it to court most of the time. And this is not just in Kenya. This is in England. This is in the US. Rape cases hardly make it to court. That's why most rape victims do not even go to the police. And a lot of bystanders stand there and say, oh, but why didn't you come and talk about this earlier? Why are you coming out 10 years later? Why are you coming out 5 years later? Because of how badly society and the justice system treats victims of these kinds of crimes. Because of how badly we get judged when our perpetrators get off scot-free. So this is a time to reflect. As a survivor of such a horrendous crime, it's a time to pat yourself on the back. And I mean that genuinely. You have survived. Your spirit may be broken now, but it won't be broken forever. It won't be broken forever. Your soul may be broken now, but it won't be broken forever. Out of this can spring a phoenix, out of the ashes. Out of this, you can become self-actualized. You can become the most amazing human being that you have ever dreamt about being. You can become more compassionate, more empathetic, more sympathetic. You can become a better person. You don't have to lean into the darkness. Definitely seek help. Seek mental health help. Whether it's speaking with a counselor regularly, whether it's seeing a psychiatrist, whether it's checking into a mental health institution. Do what you need to do. If you feel it's time to move on with your life, do that. If you feel that you need to move, do that. Do whatever you need to do that is within your circumstances. Don't feel bad about choosing yourself. Don't feel bad about moving on. Don't feel bad about the justice system letting you down. It got to a point in my case where I only reached out once and I saw the writing on the wall that nothing was actually going to happen to this person, to my perpetrator, in terms of a police case. And I had to let that go. In the spaces that we shared, I had to exit stage left. Whatever stage it was, I had to exit. I could no longer share the same spaces. I would no longer subject myself to that kind of whatever that was. You see, I was trying to prove to myself that I deserved to be here. Whichever spaces that we occupied, that both him and I occupied, I was trying to say, listen, you have taken enough of my life. I'm not going to drop out of A, B, and C simply because you were there. I can't do that. You've taken enough. And I stood my ground, and I stood and I stood and I stood. But it was really affecting me. It was really affecting me. And I had to leave all those spaces because nobody would kick the perpetrator out. And now I have peace of mind. So proving a point isn't really going to help. In my case, it didn't help me. Standing my ground really didn't help me. I found more peace when I left the same shared spaces. Now my perpetrator, last I heard, is out of the country. That's a missed opportunity for law enforcement. That is not my problem. Do I believe I was his first victim? No. Do I believe I will be his last? No. What gives me a sense of peace is that people like this do not change. People like this, rapists, do not change their behaviors. And so one day, somewhere in the future, they will do this exact same thing with someone else, and the outcome will not benefit them. And when that day comes, I pray that they think of me and all their previous victims, because people like these do not change. The world will teach them. God will teach them. Where law enforcement failed, where society failed, where our community failed, that's not up to me anymore. I did my due diligence, I went to the police, I spoke my part, and that's as far as I could have taken it. If you have done the same, that's as far as you can take it. Karma, whatever you believe in, God will do the rest. So please take some solace. Please take comfort in knowing that people like these do not change, and their life will be a testament to that. Their life will be a testament to that. They will not get away with this kind of behavior forever. They just won't. Take all the time you need. Heal and rest. Sleep as much as you can. If your circumstances allow you to, be kind to yourself. Cut out the toxic people in your life who are not validating your feelings, who are not validating your needs, and who are not supporting you. Enjoy the sunshine. Enjoy the rain. One day your soul will be healed again. One day your heart will be healed again. One day you will be able to smile genuinely. One day you will be able to look at yourself as a whole person again. One day it will be fine. Until then, I'm really sorry that you went through this. In my deepest heart of hearts, I am so sorry that you went through this. I did too. Thank you for watching this video. Until my next video. Bye guys.